started designing jewelry when I was 8 years old, and I wanted to be an archaeologist. And at that point, I was living on Cape Cod, and I realized that I was not about to dig up Tutankhamun's tomb on Cape Cod, and that if I wanted jewelry in my life, I was going to have to make it. My father taught me how to make jewelry, and he was a diplomat and then an architect, but he'd gone to a boarding school that, although it was very stuffy, each boy was required to learn a craft, and he had picked jewelry.
And as I look at your displays, I notice very unusual new color combinations. Some of them are very lively and they wake up your senses, and some of them are more soothing and calming, but all of them are very appealing.
Not to be too new age, but my longtime therapist, who is extraordinary, has always felt that my work is shamanistic and transformational. And if a woman allows me to put the jewel that I think works with her, especially if it's somebody that I know and like, they probably end up buying something that they wouldn't have thought of and that is wonderful on them. Not to be pompous. As you know, I like to find stones that we've all heard the names of, like garnets, but in different colors. So mandarin garnets I love, which are orange, for example. And I do that, with pink Peruvian opals, for example, in the far upper right in that case. Opals here, the round orange opals, which are Mexican, but cut in Germany, which, as we all know, are the greatest cutters, cut to perfection. I mean, those are flawless. Those round orange opals are flawless.
Beautiful, yes.
Perfectly cut, and other stones in other shades.
Would you say you love aqua? I see a lot of aquas and pearls. Why are those fascinating to you?
Well, pearls, I'm actually, very often it happens to me that people think of pearls when they hear my name, because I have done so much work with pearls. And again, going back to Cape Cod, I tried to culture pearls in my aquarium, but it didn't work. Shockingly. But the truth of the matter is that, as you know, pearls are a semi-living substance, and they interact with one's complexion. They actually are the single most flattering gem
I have to agree,
that there is. And not to go bang on at too great length, but an aunt of mine, after she saw the Vermeer show in Washington, told me something about Vermeer, which I didn't know, which is that when he paints a pearl, as in the famous pearl earring painting, when he painted, he would make the first layer of flesh for the face. The second layer of flesh, he would outline the pearl and paint the second layer of flesh and leave the space for the pearl at the first layer of flesh, and then just put a single white dot highlight in it, and bam, it becomes a pearl, which I think illustrates how flesh and pearls
the luster
really interact.
And very interesting. So how do you suggest your pieces to women? You see a woman and you think of a particular piece that you have, or how often do you make them custom for them? How does it work? What's your best way to offer your pieces to your clients?
Well, the easiest way is for me to have made something. I mean, people leave, with all due respect, even if I have a watercolor rendering of something that I've made specifically to the client's parameters, and we make the piece, not everybody is totally visual. And it can come out exactly the way the watercolor rendering, as you know, jewelers' renderings are exactly what the piece is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
There's a special method. It can be not what they had in mind, which is dicey. So commissions are tricky. I mean, of course, there are wonderful, wonderful commissions, and occasionally there's somebody who suggests something that I haven't thought of. God bless them. But also, we're like magpies. We love shiny things. And to be able to just pick it up and take it.
Absolutely. And try it out.
Has a lot of allure. A very surprising phenomenon that I find is that a lot of beautiful women don't realize how beautiful they are. And they literally won't put jewelry on them that makes them look even more beautiful. Sometimes it's that they are in a mindset of the jewelry that their fathers and their boyfriends and husbands first gave them, so small, unimportant. But it is odd. I've seen it happen with any number of beautiful, stylish women, and you wouldn't think.
Well, these pieces have a lot of personality, and I think you have to be pretty self-confident to wear it, and I think that's what you're telling us. But hopefully when women put them on with your help, they feel more beautiful and more confident wearing those pieces.
They also, as you said earlier, Vera, are wearable. These are not pieces that need to be in the bank. And the ones which are very expensive, for the most part, are not going to be grabbed off your neck, because it's not a diamond necklace. It's not, it's not a lot of little, I'm very much against a lot of little diamonds around a stone. As Fulco de Verdura said about Harry Winston, that's not jewelry, it's mineralogy. And that's true of a lot of people. There's also a very strange trend happening in the jewelry world now, which is jewelry being made which is unwearable. It's too big, it's kinetic, it's sharp, the rings like this and the bracelets like this. You're going to ruin your clothes, you're going to stab yourself, you're going to stab your date, and you're going to break the piece of jewelry. And what I like to say is that unfortunately people are throwing the kitchen sink into these pieces of jewelry, meaning that a third of the piece of jewelry would be great, but then they throw in this and throw in that. And I don't mean to be negative, but I do believe in jewelry being able to be worn forever and be chic and obviously be wearable. And I don't think that a lot of these pieces, the people who bought them are going to want to wear them in 5 years or 10 years. I mean, I know I'm a classicist and I'm 72 and I come out of the history of jewelry, but you have one of the pieces that you're selling, a pair of earrings, which you're describing what I'm inspired by, the ridge gold earrings with the diamonds in the ridges and the big pearl in the center. One of the most beautiful women in New York, Patty Tang, was a friend of mine years ago, and she asked me to make a pair of earrings. And that is an example of the interaction that happens. If it's somebody that I respect and love, it's amazing sometimes what
comes out of that.
They are my muses as well.
Very interesting. It's important to have comfortable wearable pieces, absolutely. When you put something on and it's sharp and it's not smooth, you really don't want to wear it. So it's 100% correct that you need to feel the jewelry just as much as, look at the colors and the designs. I also noticed that you have a lot of variation of which looks like an X design, which has some interesting gold finish and detailing.
That comes out of when I first started making jewelry commercially in New York in 1972. You know, everybody else, it seemed to me, has an uncle who's a diamond dealer and a cousin who's a pearl dealer and a grandfather who's a goldsmith, and I didn't have any of that. So
lucky them.
lucky them. And yes and no, because I was able to invent whatever I wanted and not to start with parameters. I mean, I find a way to make what I have in my mind. And also, again, not to be pompous, but I've seen just about every jewelry collection in the world, and I've made a point of it. For anybody who hasn't been to Dresden, you're making a big mistake. The Dresden Green Vaults are one of the most extraordinary jewelry repositories in the world. 3,500 pieces of jewelry, most of which had been made in the 1600s and 1700s and not taken apart and not reset, which is very unusual in a royal family. And when I went there, I went with a friend, and I walked in the door and I started laughing. And he said, "What's the matter with you?" And I said, "I only have to take one look from the door to know that Augustus the Strong, who was the first great collector and the kings of Poland and Saxony, not only did he make his court jeweler and his court sculptor work together, who were both geniuses, and that doesn't usually happen, but he had to say to them, I don't care how much it costs, and I don't care how long it takes, because there's no way that this treasury could ever have happened otherwise."
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we should plan our next trip to Dresden.
The residence in Munich has a great collection, but unfortunately it's closed at the moment for renovation. Unfortunately, I just told a friend of mine who was in Munich to go,
and that's how you found out. The tough way.
The pearls, what I did when I started making jewelry commercially in New York was to go up and down 47th Street, and in those days 90% of all the real jewelry in America was being made pretty much on that block between 5th and 6th in the skyscrapers. And I went into every little office on every floor because I had to learn what they had, what was available. And in those days, you didn't have the beautiful displays that you have now, the glass case, everything's out. Everything was in a little glycine bag in a box. You had to go through thousands. And one of the things that I fell across were the X-shaped freshwater pearls, which are my signature. And I was very much aware of the Baroque jewelry where a jewel is made with a pearl as a swan's body, as a ship, as a mermaid. And the minute I saw them, I bought every single one that I could, and I've done so ever since. Unfortunately, I was invited to show my collection in early 1981 at a very, very, very famous company. And because the design director was a friend of mine, I assumed that it would be fine for me to do that. And 6 to 9 months later, they came out with a line
oh God.
in gold of abstract X's that has made hundreds of millions of dollars, which is annoying.
Yeah, I would say so.
People love to say that copying something is the greatest form of flattery. Yes and no. But it is an X shape, it's a kiss.
It's a kiss.
And it segued into my making gold versions as well.
Yes, it's still, I feel like one of your signature details, very recognizable right away. And as a final wish, what would you say to those lucky women who are going to win your jewelry at our auctions? What advice and how should they wear it? how should they enjoy it, and what's there for them in those pieces?
Well, the pieces that you have in this auction, the ridged gold earrings with diamonds and the South Sea pearls in the middle, are something that I'm going to be bidding on. Does that tell you anything?
One of your favorite pieces. Okay.
And I've been very lucky. Jewelry of mine has been coming up in the secondary market, and I have been buying it. The craftspeople are less and less. It's all very time consuming, and my vintage pieces are by some of the best work people I ever met in my life.
The workmanship level.
Met in my life. And largely European, Russian, Romanian, South American, and of course, André Chervin, the dean of jewelry in America, made some of my most spectacular pieces. The trouble with that is that people have decided that I'm expensive because they're familiar with my lavish pieces, which of course are used for publicity. And let me say, no jeweler could survive if they didn't have 80% of their jewelry being between $5,000 and $15,000. So the $150,000 to $1 million pieces that I've made are not totally representative of what I do.
Well, it sounds like ladies really need to be ready and pay attention because they've got some serious competition for those lots. But anyway, again, we're very flattered. We are very excited. Your pieces definitely add interest and flavor to our auctions, and we do appreciate your work and your time. Thank you.
I appreciate you even thinking of talking to me. It's a delight.